Good afternoon, race fans. Welcome here as we get set for race number 8 of the debut season of the NRSL Winston SuperSpeedway Series. After this race, only 2 more races remain until we determine the 12 drivers that will battle it out for the championship. 10 drivers via top 10 in points, 2 drivers via wild card positions. And our last couple of races have certainly given us a lot to think about in terms of scenarios of who's going to make it into those coveted 12 slots. We're going to be continuing on here today, though, at the high banks of Talladega Superspeedway as we get set for 19 laps of racing at this 2 2/3 Superspeedway racetrack, a track that can hold them 3 wide, sometimes 4 wide. I say that with a little bit of hesitation because a lot of times the 4 wides they do here, they don't give a heck of a lot of room, and you got to give room here if you're not going to get involved in a wreck and trigger the big one at Dega. Coming into this race, though, it's basically a mono-e-mono battle for the points lead, and then there's everybody else. Right now, J Fitzwater and Steve Morgen continue to jostle that top position in the standings back and forth. Fitzwater now the new points leader by 7 points over Steve Morgen. Then you got to go 42 points back before you get to Zach Rogers. So whether or not we're going to have a battle for the points lead for the remainder of the regular season involving anybody besides the 9 and the 75 remains to be seen, but this is Talladega. It's a super speedway. Anything can happen. It could definitely play its part into having the scenario be close heading into the end of the regular season. Let's go down trackside and get those most famous words in motorsports.
Drivers, start your engines.
William Brock lines up on the pole for this one in the number 30. That is his second pole of the season, and that makes him the first 2-time pole sitter this year. Alongside of him, the 22 of Tony Green. Brock comes into this race 24th in points. Green comes into this race all the way down in dead last in the point stands. We've seen already this season at Hillside a driver that was dead last in points go to victory lane. Could lightning strike twice here this season. Let's give you a look at the scenario of what the current playoffs would look like were the season to end now. J Fitzwater, as mentioned, the points leader, is the leader by 7 points over Steve Morgen. Zach Rogers 3rd in points with Alex Gray and Ashlyn Boyd in 4th and 5th. And the rest of the drivers that would make it in via top 10 in points at this current point in time would be J Richardson, J Gardner, Joseph Srigley, Patrick Smith, and last week's winner from Pensacola, L McIntosh, jumped 13 spots in the standings up to the 10th position. Right now, your 2 wildcard position holders, L McIntire, winner this season at Daytona, is 11th in the point standings. He would hold the first wildcard spot, and Eli Bright, our winner from a couple of weeks ago at Coca-Cola, he is 17th in the point standings. Your other 2 former winners that right now would be trying to have their way into that picture as well for a wildcard spot. Diego Yepez is 23rd in points. Benjamin Miles still trying to get out of the cellar. He is still outside the top 30 in points in 34th position. So this should be an interesting one here today. 19 laps of racing. I've run Talladega enough with all sorts of different physics to know that pretty much these drivers, they're just out there trying to win this race. I don't think they're going to have to worry about fuel strategy at all. I think they can make it a full 19-lap run without having to come to pit road. So we'll see who's got what they've got in this one here today. William Brock, Tony Green, your front row, but will they be the contenders for the win when the white flag is displayed? Right there is where the start-finish line usually is at most super speedways, but Talladega is an entity unto itself. Its start-finish line is all the way down here, and that could be a difference maker at the finish of this race as green flag is in the air. And already one driver going backwards. That was the 46 of J Gardner, who's up to 7th in the point standings after 2 solid outings at Coca-Cola and last week at Pensacola. Might just be falling to the back, waiting for his moment to move to the front here, just in case things get crazy up towards the lead. Speaking of the lead, it's about to maybe change places. A Garcia on the bottom. T Walch offering the drafting help. That inside line's got the momentum out of turn 4, and A Garcia will take the top position. Ace Garcia coming into this race in maybe one of the most coveted spots in the point standings, 30th in points. Everybody wants to be running there or higher, so that way if they go to victory lane, if they do get a win, it would count towards a championship position or a spot in the chase in the playoffs. If you're outside the top 30 in the points, you can have 1 win, you can have 11 wins, which is technically impossible in only a 10-race regular season. But regardless, doesn't matter how many wins you've got, if you're not in the top 30 in points, those wins are going to count for nothing towards a wild card spot. Walch now out in front. J Richardson was following him, but now gets kicked up to the high side by Alex Gray. Former points leader Steve Morgan now on the bottom of the track, trying to make his way up towards the front, currently situated in the 3rd position. And now gets put 3 wide. Phil Parker going to go down to the bottom. They're 3 wide, about 2, 3, I'd count about 5 rows deep. Crossover move by Alex Gray. Nice move there by the 90. He'll take the top position from Tim Walsh as they exit out of turn number 2. Phil Parker right there in 2nd. Preston Plourd, who finished his best finish of the season in 3rd last week at Pensacola, now going to go 3 wide for that 2nd position. Justin Zajdel down the bottom off the drafting help, as well as the car that Preston Plourd finished behind last week, the 28, last week's winner from Pensacola, Dallas McIntosh. See him 3 wide all the way back through this field, up towards the front though. They are single file. Gray, Plourd, Zajdel, McIntosh, the next one that's battling side by side for 4th place with Phil Parker. Looks like that's Emmanuel Hartnett helping him on the bottom of the racetrack, as well as the 22 of Tony Green, who started this race from the outside of the front row. He's now found his way to the bottom and working his way back towards the front. For a brief moment, I think we were 4 wide back there in 1 and 2, but we settled it back out to 3 wide. Here comes Preston for the top position, and that 94 who helped push him up to 2nd, now going to try and help push him to the race lead. Alex Gray has no friends up there. I don't know who he ticked off, but there's no Christmas cards coming his way. No friends up topside for the 90. Preston Plourd going to lead him here to the start-finish line. We have yet to have a Pontiac go to victory lane. Last week, Dallas McIntosh's win became the 2nd win this season for the manufacturer of Ford. Other than that, it has been all Chevrolets. Andrew Miles, Eli Bright, Zach Rogers. It's not like Pontiac hasn't been up at the front. Preston Plourd's been consistently at the front week after week. We've seen J Richardson up towards the front quite often. As Justin Zajdel now will take the top position, and Michael Norman has now fought his way up into the top 5. He's going to go 3 wide for 2nd place. Noticing a driver back there that's now up inside the top 10 who desperately needs a good run, and that is Kyle Keith in the 42. 2 weeks ago, he headed into M&M's to make that Coca-Cola Superspeedway inside the top 10 in points. 2 weeks later, he's 25th in the standings. He has struggled the last couple of weeks. He had a mechanical problem at Coca-Cola, got involved in a wreck, got some damage in the only caution that we had at Pensacola last week. Now trying to combat that here with a good run at Talladega. As Michael Norman on the bottom of the racetrack, can he clear Zajdel up top? Looks like he's got him cleared, and he will now block the inside and outside line. Parker down low, Zajdel up top. Michael Norman will lead that lap in the legendary number 3. Nathan Stapleton now in the 21, and JT Bryant in the 88, as well as Jonathan Zorlin in the 7. We're starting to see some Fords hooking up together here on the bottom of the racetrack. Zorlin now going to make it 3 wide, sticks. Leave up JT Bryant into the middle. A lot of Fords down there, actually. You've got 21, the 7, 2, and the 9. And I believe that's the 16 as well. Another Ford and another Ford behind him. That being the 12 of I Nicholls. 4 wide. Zajdel up top side. That's, I believe, Zorland in the middle with Brenna Carmichael. They got through it, though. Carmichael now drives to the top side. They're back to 3 wide. Meanwhile, top 6, maybe 7 are single file right now. Norman, Parker, Stapleton, Zorland, Young, Fitzwater, Keith, and then you get back to Boyd. Now they're going to go 3 wide up towards the front. That's Zorland sticking Stapleton in the middle. Phil Parker way up top side. And all this battling for second place is just allowing Michael Norman to continue to roll the draft. Michael Norman may be one of the best in the business when it comes to plate racing, even though we really haven't seen him step up this season. He's 27th in the point standings, but no time like the present if you're Michael Norman to try and find victory lane. Zorland now moves into second, Keith into third, Ashlyn Boyd now to fourth. And Ashlyn Boyd, if we didn't point it out, probably people wouldn't realize, top 5 in the points coming into this race, 5th in the standings. One of the most consistent drivers this season, next to Steve Morgan and Zachary Fitzwater. Kyle Keith now going to move to second place, and here comes Austin LaPlante. He's got a rear decklet full of James Shelly. LaPlante, who finished 3rd in the season opener at Daytona. James Shelly's been having a bit of a struggling year. Currently finds himself 37th in the points. He had a somewhat good run last week, which gained him 3 spots in the standings, finishing at Pensacola in the 13th position. And right behind them is the guy that's trying to take his points lead back, Steve Morgan in the 75. Don't see Fitzwater. There he is, up top side. 4th on that outside line. The gap between him and Morgan coming into this race was 7 points. So Steve needs to keep gaining spots. He needs Fitzwater to keep losing spots here. We've entered into the second half of this race. So far, so green. And I believe all 42 cars are still up inside this lead pack. Yep, the straggler right now is Joshua Ciculli, but he still has the draft from the lead pack. So all 42 cars that started this race still have a shot of winning this thing. As Shelly now goes to the bottom of the track. He's going to have Alex Gray with some drafting help. They need more friends, though. Now Hartnett shifts lanes, as does Kyle Keith. Now it's LaPlante and Steve Morgan up top. And wait a minute, are we having pit stops? That 75 kind of moved up top, kind of as if people were indicating they were coming to pit road. And it's the 42 of Kyle Keith who's coming to pit lane. So I thought they were good to go on fuel up for this entire event. Apparently I'm wrong. Kyle Keith electing to come to pit road, and I think he came alone. Oh no, he had some friends. Seth Cole, Brenna Carmichael. There's Keith Gardner. There was another driver too that I missed. Oh, that's the 96 of Alexander Rowe. So about 5 drivers coming to pit road here, and so now the green flag pit stops are going to be taking place. Who's coming this time? I would say Michael Norman might be coming this time. He's right down the bottom of the track. Alex Gray as well. And here they come. It's going to turn the race lead over to the 23 of James Shelly. He's now got a big lead between himself and some Fords. Fitzwater, Winkle, and Steve Morgan. Zach Rogers there as well. Benjamin Miles. Nicholls, Tim Walsh also stayed out. There's Alexander Rowe as well, and I believe that would be your top 10 right at the moment. James Shelly, not the best scenario for him in the fact that everybody that was behind him came to pit road, so there's a huge gap from him back to Fitzwater. And with no drafting up, he's not putting down a lightning fast lap time right now, which could come back to bite him when these pit stops do cycle themselves around, and Shelly now will give up the race lead to come to pit road. Race lead's going to get turned over to the 97 of Z Winkle, who elects to come to pit road this time, or to stay out this time, I should say. And I believe he's the last driver we're going to be waiting on. Everybody else just now leaving their pit stalls. I saw some skid marks on the entry to pit road. I don't know if somebody spun and saved it or what. Whatever the case, though, it was not enough to warrant a caution flag. And this is not a good spot for Z Winkle with cars coming off of pit road. If Winkle wants to get to the bottom of the racetrack, he better do it soon. Looks like he will clear Joseph Srigley, so he will have a clear lane to come to the pit lane. Now Srigley seeing the wave, the indication that Winkle's coming to pit road, moves up high. And Winkle will safely get the John Deere Ford down to the pit lane. You can see those skid marks right there. So I don't know if somebody spun or not. But you can just see as Winkle comes to pit road up there on that front straightaway how the field is so split up. So it's going to make it very interesting of what the scenario is going to look like of who's going to be up in the lead pack and who isn't, because when Winkle crosses the line, it's theoretically going to be 5 laps to go. So Winkle on pit road. There is Shelly, who pitted from the lead. There's the first car to hit pit road, Kyle Keith. I think the race lead might cycle around back to the 23 of James Shelly. He is just now hitting the stripe. There is Winkle in the 97. Shelly, I think, will easily pass him, and I believe that right there was the transition back to the lead for the 23 car. The bad news for Shelly is, much like the scenario when he came to pit road, he exits pit road by himself, and there's a pack of drivers behind him, Steve Morgan, Kyle Keith, Austin LaPlante, Zachary Fitzwater, who could very easily run him down and pretty much leave him as a sitting duck when and if they catch him. Zach Rogers in this group as well. Alexander Rowe right there in the 96. Winkle drops back into this battle with Miles, Norman, Gardner, and Hartnett. That would be for around the 9th position, I believe. That time by... Wow. Yeah, second place on back. Really closed up the gap on James Shelly that time. 7/10 the separation, and you can just see visibly they are closing in. Now, right now, I don't know if the 96 is in the draft, so it may come down between 6 drivers to settle this out. Shelly, Morgan, LaPlante, Keith, Fitzwater, and Rogers. Rogers has been to victory lane twice this season. Out of the rest of the 5 that have yet to go to victory lane, the highest finish would be Zachary Fitzwater's 2nd place, and that was last week at Pensacola. Morgan to the bottom of the racetrack on James Shelly. But look at how LaPlante switches grooves. He goes up topside to help the 23. That's going to cost him, though. Fitzwater now down low with help from Kyle Keith and Zach Rogers. And Steve Morgan wants to take the points lead back from Zachary Fitzwater. Best way he could maybe do that is win this race, because right behind him is the driver he's trying to take the points lead away from. Said Morgan and Fitzwater, they've been the 2 most consistent drivers this season. That's why they're 1-2 in the points, and they both are about 40-plus points away from 3rd in the standings, which is actually up in this lead group as well, the 24 of Zach Rogers. So 1st, 2nd, 3rd in points are up inside this lead pack. Going to be 2 laps to go, and I would watch the gap back there from the leader back to 8th place Benjamin Miles. That's a big pack of race cars. They were 2 back last time. They lost about a 10th this time as they're battling amongst themselves, so I don't think they've got enough time to get up here and be a factor in the outcome of this race. And now, what was the top 6 is now broken into 2 groups of 3. Here comes Kyle Keith to the bottom for 2nd on Fitzwater. Did he have any drafting help to get by the 9's the question. Shelly now back into the draft of those top 3. He's bringing Rogers and LaPlante with him. Yeah, I don't think that second group's got a ghost of a chance of catching up here. Alexander Rowe just hoping they don't swallow him up before they get to the checkers. White flag displayed this time. Steve Morgan out in front. Kyle Keith in second. Shelly looking for second. Will he get to the inside? Yes, he will. James Shelly's going to need a heck of a run down this back straightaway if he's going to have a shot at this win, though. Fitzwater's got to stay glued to him. Shelly's trying to close the distance. He might get close enough, but I don't know if he makes a move if Fitzwater's going to go with him. Into 3 and 4. Shelly continuing to try and close the gap between himself and Steve Morgan. About maybe a car length separation between those two. It's Ford. 1, 2, 3. Down the front straightaway they come. Is Shelly close enough? Fitzwater's going to look to the bottom of the racetrack. That's going to do it. Steve Morgan's going to get his first win of the season. Takes the checkered flag at Talladega. That's the second straight week as well that Zachary Fitzwater's kind of been a spoiler of not helping a second place driver to try and get the win, instead stepping out to try and take a position for himself. The only problem for this week as opposed to last week is he may have just shot himself in the foot in the fact that he basically gave the win over to the driver that was only 7 points behind him in the standings. I believe it's 5 points bonus for winning the race. And so it could be even a tie between Steve Morgan and Zachary Fitzwater now heading into next week. Morgan may have a 1 point advantage. It's going to be close. There's no doubt about that. Shelly did manage to hang on for second place, though, so he separated the 75 and the 9 by 2 points in the finishing results. So, yeah, depending on if Fitzwater led a lap, these two could be either separated by 1 point or tied for the points lead. But Morgan will get the win. Second will be Shelly, Fitzwater third, LaPlante fourth, fifth was Rogers. Kyle Keith got sixth. He and that lead group were able to just barely catch Alexander Rowe. So Keith got 6th place. Rowe will get 7th. Gardner 8th. Brenna Carmichael in 9th. And Zach Winkle will complete the top 10. Gone down through the remainder of the finishing results here. And some names that we saw up near the front when those pit stops began kind of faded back. Stapleton, Zajdel, Dylan Young, Srigley, they were up there at the front of the field when those pit stops began. They faded back there in the closing stages. Everyone finished on the lead lap as we had no cautions in this one. But look at some of your former winners this season as well. Last week's winner, Dallas McIntosh, 37th. Diego Yepez back in 38th. Not the runs they were looking for. And William Brock started this race from the top position in first. Tony Green started alongside of him in second. And they both finished in the final 2 positions here today, 41st and 42nd. Not the runs they were looking for. But Steve Morgan, I think maybe, just maybe, that win just locked himself up a spot to battle for the championship in the upcoming postseason. Came into this race second in the points. The gap between him and 10th in the standings was 55 points. I think that win may have just locked him up as one of the official drivers that will battle for the championship here this season. We'll have to wait and see, though. Thank you all for tuning in to today's race from Talladega. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to become part of the crew today. We've shown you full results. These are your points heading into next week. 2 more races remain before we determine the 12 drivers that will battle for the championship. Until then, I've been Seth Cole. You've been watching a production of ESRA, offline racing at its best.